Welcome into the Landon Tangwall Show, brought to you by Hoover. This is the beginning of my preseason top 10 series, where I'm going to give you guys an in-depth look at each team, starting out at number 10. We're about to go 6 weeks, so we'll do about 2 a week. We're going to start out with the University of Alabama at number 10. Now, real quick, I do a bunch of all 22 film breakdowns. That's how I studied for this and really studied the entire Alabama roster. But I will do some of those film cut-ups over on my Twitter at Landon Tangwall. So if you want to see those, head on over there afterwards and follow me, because I'll be posting a lot of college football content. All right, so Kalen DeBoer, it's an interesting situation. This is a guy that was definitely feeling some heat last year and isn't exactly beloved in Alabama. And I don't think it is lost on him what is at stake this coming season in 2026. But I think one of the most interesting aspects of him is that he easily could have left this past year if he wanted to after the season. In many of the top head coach openings around college football, he was the number one guy. It was even said that Michigan offered him a blank check, but he turned that down. So he could have hit the reset button, and no one really would have batted an eye at Kalen DeBoer. But he decided to stay at a place that he knows if he puts up one more mediocre season, his tenure in Tuscaloosa probably is over. So that begs the question then, what does Kalen DeBoer know about this Alabama team that we don't know? So overall, I've seen the narrative this offseason that Alabama needs to get back to being what they were under Nick Saban. And that is what was dubbed joyless murder ball, which as a former offensive lineman, that gives me basically just chills just thinking about that. But that's not what Kalen DeBoer's teams have been for a while. So, I mean, you look at this and everybody's saying, hey, you have to get back to being able to put together 15-play drives where 11 or 12 out of those plays are smash you in the mouth run plays and just wear down a team. But like I said, the problem is Kalen DeBoer, where he's been at everywhere in his career, his teams have never really been that. So we're putting up on the screen right now Kalen DeBoer's offense's rushing yards per game pre-Alabama. We're also including his last year as an offensive coordinator, which was at Indiana. Now, obviously, DeBoer no longer calls plays. But you see that his teams never even cracked the top 80 in rushing yards per game in the FBS. So DeBoer has never had the offense that is about punch you in the mouth and take your lunch money. He still was finding massive success, though, without that formula. And honestly, looking at it, I don't know if rushing dominance is something that is needed, because you look at the most recent SEC teams to win a national championship, and really outside of Georgia in 2022, those teams didn't lean on smash mouth run game. So they all ran the ball well enough, around the 50s, maybe the 40s, but it really wasn't, hey, we have to run the ball super well to be able to win. It was more about the fact that, hey, passing is what got us there. Now, one thing that DeBoer's offense have done really, really well in the past is protect the quarterback. Now, the only caveat to that is that has not been the case since he has been at Alabama. So this is the percentage of times that DeBoer's quarterback are under pressure over the years, going back to, once again, his OC days at Indiana. And as you can see, there's a steep increase in the pressure that Milroe and Simpson faced versus DeBoer's other quarterbacks. So obviously, DeBoer knows he has to run the ball better. There's no question about that. It's a non-negotiable. It was borderline horrific run game last year, 129th in the FBS. You cannot be there. But I almost think he might be more worried about protecting his quarterback. And speaking of quarterbacks, we are not going to talk a whole lot about Keelan Russell and Austin Mack in this video, and that is because we are going to do a full film breakdown on those two. I was looking on the internet. I don't think there's any film breakdown on this quarterback battle, so we're going to hop into the All-22 tape and figure out who's going to be quarterback one in Tuscaloosa come the start of the season. So we'll have that out for you guys in a couple of days, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you do not miss that. All right. So we talked about the importance of protecting your quarterback, and that brings me to the biggest weakness for this Alabama team, which I don't think is necessarily the talent in the offensive line room, but it's more the lack of cohesion that you have in the offensive line room. So Alabama had about 8 guys on the offensive line last year that saw serious snaps. Only 2 of those guys are still on the team, in Carroll and Sanders. So majority of the offensive line are transfers coming in, and most don't really know what they're bringing to the table. So good news is I watched all 22 on all of these guys, spent a lot of time diving into this offensive line, and I put together my projection for this 2026 offensive line depth chart. So we'll start out over at right tackle. And this is the one returning starter from last year, which is Michael Carroll. For a true freshman, I was really, really impressed with his tape. I mean, this is a high IQ player, always looking to help out his guard, his tight end, if he just has an extra second on his block. So very smart, fantastic movement, very athletic. I love his ability to be able to anchor in the pass pro game and really has some pretty good recovery. Now, he can absolutely move in the run game. I've seen him really be able to accelerate, especially when he's on the backside of outside zone and just absolutely just turn and run and reach his guy. And there was a little nasty on tape. He was. I saw him dump some guys, but I think the biggest, kind of the next step he really needs to take, the biggest part of his game that is lacking is his hands. And that's in run game and in pass pro. In pass pro, sometimes he really lacks that punch that can keep separation with the defensive lineman. And in run game, sometimes that coil, that getting up in someone's chest, it's just not really there. He really will get wide with his hands sometimes. And so I think that's the number one thing he has to improve upon. And look, that's fine. That's something you expect someone coming out of their true freshman year to have some issues. I truly believe he has the talent that in 2028, we could be talking about him as a first-round offensive tackle. All right, let's talk right guard here. This one might be my favorite on the offensive line. I haven't seen a whole lot of people talking about him, and somewhat under the radar, only has 86 career snaps. But I watched every single one of those 86 snaps, and let me tell you what, I fell in love with this guy, and I loved every dang minute of it. And that is Ole Miss transfer Ethan Fields. I got him starting at right guard. Classic guard build, 6'3", 320, and a big old behind. And he wants to finish plays, put you in the dirt when he's pulling. And really, that's something that a lot of offensive linemen lack nowadays. And I think that's even something that Alabama's offensive line last year lacked, was some of that physicality, some of that nastiness. And that's what he brings. I put in my notes right here. I'll read it to you. A huge body that can move and wants to be physical, needs some technique work, but he is a dude. And so it's just some, out of control. Sometimes he gets out of control. And this is, once again, a younger guy still feeling out his body. But everything that I've seen that he's bringing to the table, look, if you're a little out of control at times, I can work with that. He's got everything you want in what I remember, especially growing up, what an Alabama guard is going back a long ways. That's what Fields is to me. Now, at center, probably the greatest name in college football at the moment. Debatable. We'll talk about it. Racing Delgatti, transfer from Cal Poly. He's going into year 4. Now, only allowed 1 sack in his entire career at Cal Poly. This guy's 6'3", 300 pounds. Moves really well in space. You always need to see that out of your center because they have to snap the ball and move and just get going. So got good acceleration. He can move. Naturally, the biggest question is jumping from FCS play to FBS play. And not only just FBS play, you're going to play in the SEC where the big boys live. And so that's a big question for me. There was really nothing on his tape that got me overly excited necessarily. So I'm curious how he's going to develop. There was nothing that was overly physical about him, or, there wasn't anything super high IQ wise that you will see out of some centers. So I think he's going to be the guy because he's a sound football player, and you need that out of your leader. And it's better because he is a veteran guy. But I still have some questions about his game and just how he's going to handle that jump to SEC football. All right, now talking left guard. This is the one position where you maybe could really find some real competition here. And who I think will be the starter is going to be William Sanders, who last year played 185 snaps for Alabama. And I'd like to see some more physicality out of him in the run game. But I will say one thing, I did love him as a pulling guard. He's very good at that. But the other guy that I think can kind of throw his hat into the ring is Nick Brooks, transfer from Texas. He's going into year 2, just finished up his true freshman season. Now, watching his tape, bit of a roller coaster session, if you want me to be honest with you, because you see someone with a ton of potential. This is a massive human being playing guard at 6'7", 350 pounds. So only played in 4 games. This is kind of the caveat to this great size. Played in 4 games. He allowed 20 pressures in those 4 games. Poor Arch Manning against Florida. Our guy Brooks let up 9 pressures in one game at guard. It was not a good day for him. So you look at it, and he's a freshman. On his tape, you see it. He's not a very high IQ player. There was a lot of times where, especially like on double teams, he never had a good feel of when to get off on the double team, when to climb up to the linebacker. It just looked like a freshman playing football, very confused, and his timing and just IQ was really off. So I think this could be one of the main backups at guard, but he has to be developed. So I think this is a guy that you're looking at and you're saying, hey, this is a test for Adrian Clem, your new offensive line coach. Can you develop this guy? Because he's got a lot of the tools. I see flashes on tape, but there's a lot of issues in his game that need to be fixed. And technical-wise, he's got to get a lot better. All right, starting at left tackle, I got Javen James. This is transfer from Mississippi State. Just got announced in late January. He's still got 2 years of eligibility left. And that's actually the best part about if this is the starting lineup, or really whatever the starting lineup is, you're going to get a good 2 years of everybody getting to play together. So that is the upside of this. I love this guy. I think he's my favorite guy on the offensive line. I know I said that about Fields, but as far as like truly being a little more polished, he can move and pass, bro. He's got a great set, a great punch. I love he mixes up his sets, meaning sometimes he'll take that vertical set. Sometimes he will do a jump set and just go attack the defensive end. That's important. We call that messing with the pass rusher's rhythm. The defensive end, he's got moves in his head. Hey, I'm going to work this move. I'm going to work that move. If he's expecting a deep set and next thing you know, you're jumping on top of him with the jump set, that messes with that defensive end, and that's something that I saw from James fairly frequently. Now, he accelerates in the run game. Like I said, he can move, run game and pass. He's just overall really good movement. The number one thing he needs to work on are the soft edges that he gives, meaning he kind of just allows that defensive end to bend that edge a little too easily, I felt like. And so what that looks like is, you kind of see it on tape, dropping that back foot, conceding the edge to the defensive end. It wasn't a massive problem. It wasn't like that was happening all over his tape, but when he did lose, that was kind of what I saw from him. So overall, I think he is going to be the anchor on this offensive line out there at left tackle. Now, there's a few other guys. I'm sure some people are saying, hey, I expected this guy to start. Let's talk about some of the other guys that I think are still, there's competition. There's spring ball. There's fall camp. I'm not saying this is for sure, but just from the tape that I saw from last year, this is where I would put these guys. So let's talk about some other guys. Jackson Lloyd only played 41 snaps last year, 6'7", 320. Spring ball and fall camp is going to be big for this kid because I'm very curious to see how he develops. You can see he's got a little bit of stuff to him, but his tape was way too raw for me to feel comfortable saying, hey, I think this guy could beat out Javen James for left tackle. I just don't think he can from what I saw. Now, once again, who knows? Let's see what Clem can do as far as being an offensive line developer. Like I said, I think he's got a lot of tools, but there was too many questions of lack of anchor in pass protection. There was a lot of times where he was getting bull rushed back, and it wasn't only just the lack of anchor. It was also the lack of punch, and that was a big reason why it was happening. He wasn't punching. Guys were getting into his chest. And then on top of that, you're a freshman. You don't got the leg strength. You don't got the power in those legs that you have, once you're 3-4 years into the program. So he didn't really have much to fall back on, and he struggled in some of those 41 snaps. So another guy that I'm curious to see how that develops. And by the time we do get to August of 2026, is that someone that really is competing because he is starting to feel more and more comfortable. And I will tell you guys, from personal experience, that was the change that I had when the game slowed down for me was after I played some games my true freshman year and going into my sophomore year, that spring ball and that fall camp, it was kind of like, all right, this is all starting to move a little bit slower. So someone that I think can definitely be involved in the rotation, but just from what I saw last year, I didn't think he was ready. Now, Caden Strayhorn, guard center from Michigan. True freshman last year, only saw him in the bowl game versus Texas. To put it bluntly, listen, I'm very honest here. If you're new here, I don't tell lies. I don't sugarcoat too much. I'm just going to tell you what I wrote at the top of the scouting report. Because all these guys, I watched their tape, and I have all the different notes of each play, and I mark it down. But at the top, I write some overall themes. There wasn't much there except the quote, he sucks. So there's a ton of me saying WTF, and the word awful was written a lot on that tape. Really lacks aggressiveness, plays out of his legs in the run game. He'll get dented. He'll get two hands put into him, and he just gets kind of driven back. So once again, that's a guy that you are going to have to polish up. Now, the good news is that was true freshman tape. So like I said, as anything negative about these guys, the good news is most of these guys are not, they're not 1-year rentals, because this seems like the guys they are bringing in, they are planning to then develop them. But this is really going to test Clem's ability to develop, because I had a lot of questions about his tape just overall. It was not good. This is the guy I think that needs the most work out of anybody. And then lastly, his teammate that he played with at Michigan, Ty Haywood, 6'5", 315. He can play guard or tackle, also coming into year 2. So true freshman last year. Only played 15 snaps for Michigan. Got a couple in the Maryland game and a couple other games. So I watched all 15 of those. It's hard to get a good feel of who someone is through 15 snaps. But I think this is someone that can absolutely be a depth piece and could be someone that could really start for you down the line. I found him to have really good IQ and nice bend through those 15 snaps. But that was run game. He had one singular pass pro snap, so didn't get much out of that. I think it was a play action naked boot. So got nothing out of that. This is one of my names I'm putting a star next to. I want to see what this guy does in spring ball. I want to hear what Adrian Clem has to say about him. I want to see, is he jumping off the tape a little bit? Are people talking about this guy? Because it looks like he has the ability. He's very sound. Like I said, he always stays in his bend. He plays with good footwork. He makes sure to keep a base. So that's a name I would keep an eye on that I think, once again, you have the development of spring ball, the development of fall camp. Can he be a guy that could compete moving forward? All right, let's talk about the biggest strength of this Bama team in 2026. And I think that's far and away the DB room. So not only is it the most talented room, it's also the most veteran room on this entire team. In the starting 5, you got 5th year Keon Sabb, you got 4th year Bray Hubbard, who I think both could have went to the NFL last year if they wanted to. And I think they were both the best 2 players on defense last year. And I think they're probably going to be the best 2 players on defense once again this year. Both are sub 10% missed tackle rate. And anytime, especially safeties, anytime you're below 10%, that means you're a very, very good tackler. I would say the 10 to 12 range, if you're in there, it's like, oh, you're decent. You start getting above that, it's a little shaky. You start getting below that number, that means you're a damn good tackler. So that is your last line of defense. I think that's big time right there. And then on the outside at cornerback, you get Zabin Brown and Dijon Lee playing those outside cornerback positions. Brown and Lee both led the team in pass breakups last year. They both had 5. And one note on both of them, they both only had 1 penalty, which I think is important. You're playing clean football. You're getting some pass breakups, but you're not hurting your team with a bunch of pass interference or holding calls. I like that a lot. And then once again, a common theme in this secondary, very solid tacklers. Brown is right there at a 10% missed tackle rate, and Lee is at an 8% missed tackle rate. So really, really nice there on the outside. And that's important. When you start to bounce those outside runs, you get an inside run by the offense and they bounce it outside. You're one-on-one and you're the only guy out there because everybody else got sucked into the middle. We need good tacklers. If I got an 8 and 10% missed tackle rate guys out there, I feel pretty dang good about that. And then Red Morgan at the nickel cornerback position. I really like what I saw from him as far as coverage. I'd say the main thing he needs to improve very much so is his tackling, because as a slot cornerback, you're almost playing in the box. You're getting sent on blitzes, and he has a 27% career missed tackle rate, which, putting it honestly, is just pretty bad. So I'm going to need that to improve going into year 3 with Morgan. But I still think this room is incredibly talented. Like I said, it's veteran. This is going to be the leader of your team, this position group. So these are the guys you are going to see this Alabama defense lean on for sure. Now, let's talk some X factors on this Bama squad. The first one, wide receiver Ryan Williams. And the simple truth is that Ryan Williams has to step up this year. Really, one interesting stat that I found is I'm going to need Ryan Williams to step up towards the end of the year. So if you look at the last 6 games of his freshman year and the last 6 games of his sophomore year, in no game did he have more than 53 receiving yards. So that's a heavy fall off towards the end of the year. So I think that's interesting. I don't know what you equate to that. Obviously suffered some drops this past year and start to kind of get in his own head. But it was the same way as true freshman year, where we kind of felt like he was, this freshman phenom, and it still fell off on the back end of the season. Now, he's got all the talent in the world. I love how he sets up his releases on the line of scrimmage. He absolutely knows how to influence DBs, especially as he gets deeper into his route, and just give that stick. If he's got an outbreaking route, give that stick inside and then break out. Like, he can create some separation. But the biggest problem is, we've talked about, he just has to clean up his drops. It's number one thing on the job description. If the ball hits your hands, you better catch it. And there were some bad ones last year, especially on important plays. This one right here I'm putting on the screen, this is a 4th down, and hits him in the hands. It might not have been the easiest catch, but you got to come up with that one. Now, I will say there was a lot of plays where I felt like he had clean routes and he very much beat DBs, and it was either a poor pass or the pass protection broke down and you were not able to get, Ty Simpson was not able to get the ball out to Ryan Williams. So really just comes down to year 3. It's put up or shut up for Ryan Williams. He's got to show up. It is time to get back into that superstar form that we really saw in the first half of his freshman year. Now, one other X factor I have on this team is also on offense. True freshman running back Xavier Crowell. Now, this guy should be getting ready for, his senior prom next year. He did reclassify from the 2027 class to the 2026 class, early enrolled in January on top of that. So he's going to be in college, where he should still be a junior in high school. And he was the number 2 running back in the 2026 class. So, this is a superstar, as you'd expect. His tape is absolutely insane. Just breaking as many tackles as possible, outrunning everybody. What you would expect from a 5-star number 2 running back in the nation. It's just, how does this translate? Can you be that same superstar in college? What is that adjustment period going to be like in spring ball? The reason why I put this here is because, look, I like Daniel Hill. I like everybody else you got on the roster, but I don't think you have that true, what I would call an X factor in the running back room outside of Crowell. So that's why I want to say, hey, can he be that guy? Can he be one of those running backs you had for so long in the 2000s and 2010s? But the past couple of years, it has really kind of fallen off at the running back position. Can Crowell kind of jumpstart that back and be an X factor on offense where, like we talked about, it's going to be important. He's going to pass the ball. That's what they do. But you're going to need to run the ball a little bit better than 129th in the nation. And I think Crowell can be a guy that can really give you a little jump start there at that position. All right, let's talk pivot point in the Alabama season. And this is the date on the schedule where I think the season will be defined by this date. Now, it sounds kind of weird, but I think it's the bye week. You look at this schedule, you have 3 really, really tough games leading up to the bye week. You have at home versus Georgia, you have at Tennessee, and then you come back and you have at home against Texas A&M. And so the biggest question is, where are you physically after this game? How beat up are you? What type of depth do you have on this squad? But also mentally after those 3 games, where are you? Because you might win all of them. You might, you lose 2 out of the 3. Well, you're going into that bye week, and that thing is going to feel extra long. You're going to be hearing ESPN's going to be talking. If you lose 2 of those, or even 3 of those, there's the talk. Is Kalen DeBoer going to be fired? What is this team going to look like the rest of the season? It's not going to be kind to the players that bye week if that 3-game stretch doesn't go how they'd like it to go. And then on top of that, you come out of that bye week, you have at LSU, at Vanderbilt. So back-to-back tough away games there for you. And so I that's what you're looking at. Can this Bama squad rally? Now, maybe, I don't know. Maybe you win all 3 of those games and you're sitting there at the bye week and it's like, hey, we're feeling damn good and we're coasting. That might happen. But I think you look at a team that is really young. This is a very young squad. And you say, yeah, maybe we probably will drop 1 or 2, before this bye week. So how are you going to be able to rally? What is the message going to be from DeBoer? Are you going to be able to do something similar that you did last year where you found a little bit of that, hey, let's get this back. Let's find a way to win. And you even won a playoff game. So I'm curious, you're going to see coming out of that bye week what this team is really made of in 2026. Now, looking at this Alabama roster, it's incredibly young, like I just said. Given the youth of this roster, you don't really have very many seniors at all starting on this team. If I'm DeBoer, I am saying, look, 2027 and 2028 are our years. And the biggest problem for DeBoer is you got to make sure you survive to 2027 and 2028 and get through this year. And look, I think the best way to do that is to start Kalen Russell, because you have to sell hope if you are Kalen DeBoer, especially if the season doesn't go all the way. Even if you go 9-3, you still have to sell hope that, hey, the future, we're going to get back to undefeated and 11-1. We will get back to that type of Alabama. And I'm not saying this year's going to be a wash by any means. I'm not just saying, they're at number 10 for a reason on my list. I think it's a very talented team, but you are going to return almost every single starter in 2027. I'm just saying, I think you're better off if you ride with your young quarterback, because you look at it and let's say 9-3 again. If you go 9-3 with Mac, it's a big difference than going 9-3 with Russell, in my opinion, because like I said, you get to sell that hope of the future versus it looks a little bit different if it's Mac. So I'm curious to see where that goes. Like I said, once again, we will be doing a film breakdown of Russell versus Mac. That's going to come out in a couple days, and we're going to dive into that tape. I am really excited about that one. I think they both have a lot of great flashes, but I'm excited to break down this Russell tape because he brings a lot to the table, and I can understand why this guy was a unanimous 5-star. But appreciate you guys tuning into this one. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.